Renewed concerns today around Alphabet's AI model, Gemini, as more controversies mount around the chatbot's inaccurate responses and image generation features. Some are now calling for a change in leadership. Our Deirdre Bosa has been covering the story for today's Tech Check. Dee, that seems a bit out there. Why is this conversation even coming up?
It is out there, and I will say that you mentioned how the stock has performed under Sundar Pichai for almost a decade, nothing to scoff at. But also this conversation isn't exactly new, right? There's always been chatter around Google that it's not nimble, it's not quick enough. You have nicknames like Grandpa Google, this idea that rest and vest, that's where senior engineers go to do that. They stop innovating and they're slow to ship products. But in this case, right, it's all the more important because generative AI is supposed to be the biggest platform shift since the internet. So there's this idea that Google can't afford to have botched rollouts like it has with Gemini, that this matters more than ever. So the CEO, Sundar Pichai, he's taking a lot of the heat, I would say, not from any major investors that I have heard on, but more on social media. So it will be interesting to see if other investors like a TCI, for example, that was the activist that wrote a letter back in 2022 telling Google to get fit. We haven't heard from them yet, or other large investors to see if they're sort of demanding for changes in management. I will say, though, Dom, there's another person to keep an eye on. It's not just Sundar Pichai himself, but it's Google's chief of search, someone named Prabhakar Raghavan. He's been at the forefront of AI announcements, demos, and the recent apology over the Gemini image generator. So he's someone to watch as well. And the fact that he's out front, maybe not Sundar Pichai himself, but the head of search is the one that's announcing these new generative AI products may tell us something important here, that Google isn't ready to let go of search. And that big question still looms over the company. What happens to its cash cow, search advertising? I mean, for sure, that's a huge part of the core business there and obviously an engine for what drives maybe a lot of the other investment there. I wonder, in your reporting, in your circles around the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, is there a sense as to what Sundar Pichai, what Alphabet and Google need to do to put themselves as a favorable investor story up against the likes of companies like an Amazon or a Meta Platforms or other mega cap tech companies that have such AI ambitions as well? Yeah, I think the main thing is that it has to be more nimble. It has to move faster. When you think about what has happened with Gemini, had to do this big rebranding. It was Bard. Another project was Duet. We've seen this in the past, that Google has had to sort of rebrand products, relaunch them, take them away. They need to be more decisive. That's at least what I hear in the Valley. They need to be quicker as well, right? ChatGPT stole that mainstream AI moment. It took Google nearly 2 years to get Gemini out, and it was still riddled with all of these issues. Not to say that OpenAI's ChatGPT didn't have its issues when it launched as well, around misinformation, bias, as well as just straight up hostility. But there also is this idea, when you look back at Sundar Pichai's, management reign over Google, there hasn't been this big killer product yet. I mean, you could argue that cloud, yes, but it's a hyperscaler, but it's the number 3 position, and until recently, it wasn't even profitable. So I think that people here in the Valley want to see more innovation. What Wall Street wants is better communication. But I will say Google has never been great at that in the first place. I think one analyst today called it the hermit kingdom. They keep their head down, they work on stuff, but they don't particularly communicate as well with the street as compared to, say, a Mark Zuckerberg and the year of efficiency. That's when he really started to gear the message toward Wall Street, and we've seen what's happened with that stock.
Jason Helfstein joins us now to talk about why he sees so much room to the upside. Jason, great to have you with us. Why do you think Google's been underperforming over the past couple of months? I understand you can pick any sort of different time frame, but within the past couple of months, what do you think its problems have been? What can Sundar Pichai do?
Really, it's really a lack of confidence in leadership. Probably the best example would be, this is like, asking somebody to get in a Waymo that will only go 20 miles an hour. No one's going to want to do that, right? So right now, the company is putting too many guardrails on their AI because they're too concerned about the criticisms, and they just have to kind of lean in and stop being so defensive.
So you're saying they actually have the technology, but they're sort of throttling it to make sure that there are controls on it, because they're doing that and they're still spitting out incorrect or dubious results. So what kind of guardrails are they?
I mean, none of us know, how well the technology really works under the hood, right? But what we do know is this is a company who knows how to index the entire internet better than anyone else. If you look at the data, if you look at the usage of Google's from November to January is up 3% according to SimilarWeb. Bing is up 7%, but as a percent of users, Google is still like 98%. If you look at percent of searches, they're at 91%, and going back a year and a half, they were something at like 92, right? So the point is that this company knows how to index and find information better than any other company in the world. And the question is just why won't they allow that information to come through? And again, it just seems like there's just too many training wheels that have been put on their generative AI product, and it's actually hurting the output to the point where just investors have lost confidence right now.
But Jason, it's Tim. Thanks for joining us. Is search behavior about to change, I guess is my question to you, in a way that Google's former dominance, and you talked about those numbers every time people count them out, and I know you're going Lou Duva on him, fighting their corner as well, footnote Sandy Cannell. Your thoughts here? I mean, because if search is about to change as we know it, it really opens up the playing field.
Again, I think what people were really excited about with ChatGPT was just how it had almost like a human-like interaction, right? And it captivated consumers. I could basically have a conversation with a computer way more efficient than an Alexa or a Siri, okay? But when people actually started getting to fact checking, there were a lot of issues, right? And so what people have been using generative AI for is the automation of tasks, right? Like put something in, summarize it, right? Which again, the thought is Gemini actually does that pretty well, but the criticism is really when you're using it more like a search. You're asking it a question, right? Like, who is better for the world, this person or that person, right? Or create an image of XYZ and it won't do it, or the image just kind of doesn't make sense. And so, ultimately, Google is giving you, typically we use it in business, right? Like 4 or 5 results, and you use your intelligence to go, this is the one I want to look at, right? Do we get to the point where it just gives me one? And again, it just seems like we're still kind of very far away from that, but Google should let Gen AI do what Gen AI does, right? Which is you're asking it to automate things and et cetera. So again, like I think we all need to see kind of what this looks like without the training wheels, and that's really like a management decision, and then being willing to basically accept the criticism, right? Like it will be an imperfect product, but like let it function.
So to recap, Google's Gemini is still putting out inaccurate responses, guys, and horrible image generations. We all know about that. It's not been good. Some people are now calling Google Grandpa Google. They say slow innovations, you go there when you're done innovating. I don't agree with that. I think they're taking it slow because it's such a big company, they have to put unimaginable amounts of training wheels and guardrails on it, like they were stating in the video. Guys, when you have great power comes great responsibility. They have the most data in the world, so I'm pretty sure they're going to have the biggest AI in the world. So before they fully unleash it, I think they're going to do some fine-tuning, and it might take a little while. Some are calling for replacement of Google officials. Angry investors are. I think that's just completely ridiculous. Again, huge new technology takes a little time to perfect. Wall Street needs more communication. That's true, but Google's also never been a good communicator. Google is replacing Gemini soon. They took it off because of some of the image generations and some of the inaccurate responses. They're going to update it and I guess put it back on soon. Everything has bugs. I don't think this is that big of a deal. It will get better over time, and I think the technology just needs to be able to ride out, and they need to accept the criticism, guys. Google is continuously gaining search share, so that's good. They're always gaining. They're up about 3% in the last little while. Google stock is down, however, 5% since all of this news started about slow innovations and messing up with Gemini. Other companies, I think, are just doing a little bit better. They're doing it a little bit faster. That doesn't mean Google's doing bad. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. Catch you in the next one.